History of the North Book 1. The First Flowering. For millennia, gold elves dwelt in Ilefan, where Waterdeep now stands, and Erlan, along the river Shining. From their ornate forest cities, they traded with emerging human nations like Netheril and Ilusk, and repulsed the attacks of the goblin races. Meanwhile, dwarven clans united as the nation of Delzoun, named for the dwarf who forged the Union. The nation, existing primarily underground, extended from the Ice Mountains to the Nether Mountains. Silvermoon Pass was its western border and the Narrow Sea its eastern shore. Orcs came from north of the spine of the world, but were turned back in great slaughter by the elves. To this day, this is the homeland and stronghold for orcs and similar races. History of the North Book 2, the Crown Wars. Humans immigrated into bands from the Shining Sea and up to the Sword Coast. They became seafarers, striking out across the waves to the Moonshaes, Mintarn, Ruatim and the Northern Islands. Elves engaged in an unceasing war against each other, with the humans and the orcs taking over the resulting ruins. Perhaps the greatest calamity to befall the fair folk was the Dark Disaster, a killing magic that took the form of a dark burning cloud. It enshrouded the kingdom of Miritar, and when it faded away some months later, not an elf lived, nor were trees left, only an open blasted moor, the High Moor. All was not dark for the elves. Although in retreat, as barbarian humans and orcs hordes grew in strength, their power rose in the Elven court and Evereska, remaining a stronghold to this day. They conceived of cooperation between dwarves, kindly humans, and other elves who, for mutual survival against orcs, marauding humans, and the tide of beasts, ogres, bugbears, trolls, goblins, gnolls, and other non-human creatures, led by the rising power of the giants. Astonishingly, in at least 3 places, the fallen kingdoms and their cities of Silvermoon and Mithranna, they succeeded with shining grace. To the east, on the sandy shores of the calm and shining Narrow Sea, human fishing villages grew into small towns, and they joined together as the nation of Netheril. Sages believed the fishing towns were unified by a powerful human wizard who had discovered a book of great magic power that had survived from the days of thunder, a book that legend calls the Nether Scrolls. Under this nameless wizard and those who followed, Netheril rose in power and glory, becoming both the first human land in the north and the most powerful. Some say this discovery marked the birth of human wizardry, since before then mankind had only shamans and witch doctors. For over 3,000 years, Netheril dominated the north, but even its legendary wizards were unable to stop their final doom. History of the North Book 3. Recent History of the North. In the waning summer of 1367, an immense orc horde descended from the spine of the world, intent on winding its way south into the trade lands of the north. This force of orcs, led by King Grenaer, surged its way south between the Moonwood and the Cold Wood, stopping just outside the citadel of Many Arrows. King Obald, orc ruler of the Citadel of Many Arrows, was terrified at the prospect of another orc horde, despite the fact that he knew they should be working together against the humans of the north and the spawn of Hellgate Keep. His tribal shamans, however, had been predicting a treacherous fall of the citadel, and they'd told the king that he'd be disposed by other orcs. Thus it was a dark day when King Grenaer and his horde of 150,000 orcs appeared on the plains outside the citadel of Many Arrows. King Obald announced to his followers that this horde had been sent to dislodge them from their home and send them out to be scavengers among the plains. He vowed that, as Gruumsh as his witness, the citadel of Many Arrows would slaughter these treacherous orcs like elves during a festival. For 4 months, the 40,000 orcs within the citadel held their ground. Assault after assault was mounted against the high walls of the garrison, but the attacking orcs were losing far more than the defenders. Still, the living conditions within the walls, never too good to begin with, created losses of their own. The battle for the citadel of many arrows culminated during the first week of Uktar. As another light blanket of snow sought to bury the gathered orcs, King Grenaer threw his entire remaining army at the citadel, bursting its gates and pitting orc against orc in a flurry of swords. As the two orc kings sought one another along the ramparts, the citadel began to burn. The orcs that survived the battle still speak of the extraordinary prowess of the two kings as they battled one another before their troops. Finally, however, King Obold ran Grenaer through with his long sword, but Obold was severely wounded by the time Grenaer had breathed his last breath. The orcs erupted in battle once again, and no one is quite certain what became of King Obold. It was through the smoke and snow that the victors of the conflict emerged, the dwarves of Clan Warcrown, along with a contingent of troops from Silverymoon. Charging in through the shattered gate, these new attackers quickly routed the exhausted orcs of the citadel, sending them scurrying off into the wilderness. King Emerus Warcrown now rules the citadel of Many Arrows, though the dwarves now call the city by its old name of Felbar. Most in the north still refer to the city as the Citadel, however, waiting to see if it can withstand the next orc horde. King Warcrown has put out a call for all dwarves to help defend the citadel, and news of a new vein of gold and silver is spreading rapidly through dwarven communities. History of the North Book 4. The Elven Exodus. This era left behind elven strongholds ripe for pillaging by humans and orcs. When elves chose to leave the north and travel to Evermeet, their works quickly disappeared, leaving only places like the Old Road and a ruined port in the High Forest to mark Eärland's passing. And yet it was not only the elves who would disappear from their long-held homes. The human nation of Netheril also stood on the brink of history. Doom for Netheril came in the form of a desert, devouring the narrow sea and spreading to fill its banks with dry dust and blowing sand. Legend states that when the great wizards of Netheril realized their land was lost, they abandoned it and their countrymen, fleeing to all corners of the world and taking the secrets of wizardry with them. More likely, this was a slow migration that began 3,000 years ago and reached its conclusion 1,500 years later. Whatever the truth, wizards no longer dwelled in Netheril. To the north, the once majestic dwarven stronghold of Delzoun fell upon hard days. Then the orcs struck. Orcs have always been foes in the north, surging out of their holes every few tens of generations when their normal haunts can no longer support their burgeoning numbers. This time they charged out of their caverns in the spine of the world, poured out of abandoned mines in the grey peaks, screamed out of lost dwarf holes in the ice mountains, raged forth from crypt complexes in the nether mountains, and stormed upward from the bowels of the high moon mountains. Never before or since has there been such an outpouring of orcs. Delzoun crumbled before this onslaught and was driven in on itself. Netheril, without its wizards, was wiped from the face of history. The Eärlan elves alone withstood the onslaught and, with the aid of the Treants of Turlang and other unnamed allies, were able to stave off the final days of their land for yet a few centuries more. In the east, Eärlan built the fortress of Askalhorn and turned it over to refugees from Netheril as Netherese followers built the town of Karsa in the High Forest. The fleeing Netherese founded Lorch and Loudwater. Others wandered the mountains, hills and moors north and west of the High Forest, becoming ancestors of the Uthgard and founders of Silverymoon, Everlund and Sonderbar. History of the North Book 5. The spread of humankind. The adaptable humans made use of magic they could seize or learn from the proud peoples to defeat all enemies, breaking, for a time, the power of giants and orcs. Waterdeep was founded. The last of the pureblood elves died out, a result of continued marriages with humans. In the far west, men also dwelled, wise, clever primitives called the Ice Hunters. They lived simple lives on the coast since time beyond reckoning, countless generations before Netheryl's first founders set foot on the narrow sea's western shore. Yet this peaceful folk fell prey to another invasion from the south. Crude longships that carried a tall, fair-haired, warlike race who displaced the Ice Hunters from their ancestral lands. This race, known as the Northmen, spread farms and villages along the coast from the banks of the winding water to the gorges of the Mirrah. Northman warriors drove the simple Ice Hunters farther and farther north, forced the Goblinkin back into their mountain haunts, and instigated the last council of Ilefan. Within 500 years of the Northmen's arrival, Ilefan was no more. Its residents had migrated to Evermeet. From the coast, Northmen sailed westward, claiming and establishing colonies on the major western islands of Ruatim and Gundalun, eventually spreading to all the islands in the Northern Sea. Others migrated northward past the spine of the world and became the truly savage barbarians of Icewind Dale. In the centuries that followed, Askelhorn became Hellgate Keep when it fell into the hands of fiends, and Eärland collapsed under the attack of a new orc horde. The elves fled southeast, joining with Northmen, Netherese descendants, and dwarves to form what would later be known as the Fallen Kingdom. This realm was short-lived and collapsed under the next orcish invasion, though in dying it dealt the goblin races a blow from which they have yet to recover. History of the North Book 6. The Might of Men. Along the coast, in what was once the elven community of Ilefan, humanity was once again rising in power. Merchants from the south, tribesmen from the north, and seafarers from the western islands had created a village around a trading post on a deep-water harbour, first known as Nimoar's Hold after the Uthgard chieftain whose tribe seized and fortified the ramshackle village. Nimoar and his successors, known as the Warlords, led the men of Waterdeep, as it had become known to ship captains, in a slowly losing battle against the Trolls. In a final climatic battle, the Trolls breached the aging palisade and all seemed lost until the magic of Argyron of Silverymoon turned luck against the Trolls, destroying and scattering them. Argyron, heir to the heritage and learning of Netheril, stayed in Waterdeep, and in his 112th year he again saved the city, this time from itself. In doing so, he created the Lords of Waterdeep. The city grew into the greatest in the north, possibly in all of Faerun. With Waterdeep as a firm anchor, civilization forged cautiously into the wilderness. Iluskan, now Luskan, was taken from the orcs. Loudwater, Lork, Tribor, Longsaddle, Secomber, and other towns were settled by pioneers from Waterdeep, sponsored by the Waterdavian merchant families. Though it's been centuries since the last orc invasion, there is still constant strife. Barbarians harass merchants, travellers, and towns. The seas swim with northern pirates, and wars have marred the land in recent years. Luskan, now a fierce merchant city known to harbour and support pirates, waged a war with the island realm of Ruatim over an act of piracy against one of the few legitimate Luskan merchant ships. The war raged for nearly a year, with Ruatim slowly losing ground. When it appeared that Luskan would finally win the naval war and land on the island's self, the Lord's Alliance entered the fray. They threatened war against Luskan if the skirmishes didn't stop immediately. Unable to fight a two-front war efficiently, Luskan cancelled its invasion plans. Tension between Luskan and Ruatim are still high, and their ships are often seen taking potshots at each other as they pass, often just a wave or two away from each other. The government of Ruathim has recently been sending adventurers into the hills of the island realm, looking for mercenaries who are killing merchants, farmers, and woodsmen. Ruathim believes Luskan still has a presence on the island, trying to win through subversion and terrorism what it could not accomplish through war. To the far north, the 10 towns have finished rebuilding after being nearly destroyed by the monstrous forces of Akar Kessel. With help from the tundra barbarians living nearby, they've built and repaired their cities, replanted the sparse foliage, and, most importantly, replenished the morale of their citizens. A recent trader who passed through the area carrying 17 wagons of rare oak lumber said that it was nearly impossible to determine who's a barbarian and who isn't. "They're living together," he reported in amazement. History of the North Book 7, 1368, Year of the Banner. As the dwarves settled in for the winter in their reclaimed city of Felbar, a group of Gentarim-sponsored adventurers broke into the Great Worm Cavern, slaying Elrim the Wise, shaman leader of the Great Worm tribe. As the tribe's warriors descended into the ranks of the evil adventurers, teleportation magic spirited at least 3 of those responsible, as well as a vast amount of treasure stolen from Elrim, to safety. According to Themrin, the tribe's present shaman, Elrim promised to watch over the tribe in spirit now that my mortal form is destroyed. Despite the reassuring words of Elrim, the tribe suffered through an oppressive winter that included heavy snow, scarce game, and low morale. Trusted visitors to the barbarian encampment report that Themrim and Gweshan Ironhand, Talistars, are wearing some form of armour made from the scales of Elrem. The use of their former shaman's body as protection was supposedly ordained through a dream vision. The armour appears as little more than a supple leather armour, but seems to deflect blows and protect as well as full plate armour. Nesme reported a drastic rise in the number of troll attacks in the Evermoors, and various sources confirm that something is driving the trolls out of the moors. Whatever is behind the trolls' exodus is destined to remain a mystery for the remainder of the year, as adventuring parties expend themselves against the never-ending supply of trolls that are fleeing the bog. In the most surprising move of the year, the Blue Bear tribe, led by the shaman chieftain Tantahagara, marched on the fiend-ridden fortress of Hellgate Keep. While a brief struggle for political control of the city was reported by various sources, Tantahagara emerged as the new ruler of the city. History of the North Book 8, 1369, Year of the Gauntlet. This tumultuous climate of Hellgate Keep continued to provide adventuring activity. A group of harpers infiltrated the city using cloaking magic and revealed that Tantahagara was actually an Anis. This revelation did nothing to hamper the Blue Bears' respect for their powerful chieftain, however, and the city responded to the unmasking by attacking caravans en route to Sundabar. In addition, a few expeditionary forces of Tanarri were sent to harass the citadel of the Mists, Sundabar, and Silvery Moon. Tantahagara informed her loyal troops that gates existed in these cities that could allow other Tanarri to join us in the glorious battles to come as we take control of all of the north. Alustriel cast powerful magical spells in the defence of Silvery Moon against the raiding Tanarri, and the city itself suffered no damage from their attack. The Mistmaster of the Citadel of the Mists likewise aided in the defence of his citadel, though reports still rage about the assistance of the Treants of the High Forest. Sundabar suffered from Hellgate Keep's attack, as the fiends broke through the walls and raised havoc along the city streets. While adventurers battled the fiends, Helm Dwarfriend led a large contingent of the city guard to drive the remainder from Sundabar. Still, the fiends left the city with the satisfaction of knowing that it was burning in their wake. Within 2 days, however, the fires were extinguished, and Sundabar has since rebuilt from the attack. By mid-Eliasias, rumours that Turlang, the powerful Treant, who resides in the northern high forest, was actively defending the woodlands near the citadel of the Mists, reached the ears of Tantahagara, the hag ruler of Hellgate Keep. News that Turlang was aiding the Mist Master did not escape her notice, and the belief that the citadel of the Mists was holding an extraplanar artifact only added to the hag's interest. Tanta assembled a large force consisting of more than 100 Tanari and other fiends, as well as 500 members of the Bluebear tribe to raise the citadel of the Mists. But as the evil forces marched their way into the high forest, the Mistmaster put his own plan into motion. 2 Harper agents, a bard named Krishana Fireglen, and a priest of Maestra known as Spell Viper, infiltrated Hellgate Keep, disguised as members of the Bluebear tribe. Each carried with them part of an extraplanar artifact called the Gatekeeper's Crystal. The Gatekeeper's Crystal is an artifact shaped like a 3-pointed star that is made of onyx and an unknown metal that entwines itself through the gem. Each point of the star is a separate piece that can be combined together to create the artifact or separated to form 3 powerful magical items. While the crystal can be used in different manners, it was primarily created to bring down wards, including Mythals, and other powerful protections. According to legend, it was created by a powerful lich who used it to render clerics powerless, stripping them of their ability to turn undead and nullifying necromantic magic within a 50-mile radius. The Mistmaster had a different use for the Gatekeeper's Crystal, but he needed volunteers to aid him in placing 2 shards of the crystal at precise locations within the warded city of Hellgate Keep. In particular, he needed 2 people who would be willing to trade their lives to exterminate the fiends of Hellgate Keep forever. Spell Viper and Krishana agreed to the suicide mission. Holding the pieces of the crystal, the 2 Harpers waited for the Mistmaster to activate the magic with his 3rd piece, initiating the magic that would tear Hellgate Keep asunder. When a blazing beam of purple energy illuminated the skies over the keep, no one within the fiend's stronghold had time to wonder what was happening. The power of the Gatekeeper's Crystal forced the wards to cascade upon the city, causing an implosion that shook the ground for more than 100 miles. As quickly as the wards surrounding Hellgate Keep collapsed, the crystal released the magical energy in an explosion that leveled every building in the city, leaving nothing but fist-sized chunks of rocks where Hellgate Keep once stood. Not a living creature stirred in the remains. All was silent and lifeless. The force of Tanarumri from Hellgate Keep was unsure what had happened, but had felt the tremor when the Gatekeeper's Crystal had been activated. They were fighting for their own lives, however, as the Treants, Korid, Centaurs, Satyrs, Dryads, and other creatures of the high forest, including defenders of the citadel of the Mists, battered them into the moist earth. One of the North's most notable rulers fell in the battle, however, but he took at least 6 Tanarari with him to his grave. Forael Blackhammer, the Lord Protector of Tribor, fell alongside his troops near the conclusion of the conflict. Within weeks after the final battle with Hellgate Keep, Treants blocked passage farther north at the joining of the Heartblood and Delimbir rivers. While the Treants care little for hunters and adventurers passing through the area, all caravans seeking passage north to Sundabar have been repulsed, and this is not a matter that the Treants wish to negotiate. In another mishap blamed on Turlang, Turnstone Pass was blocked by a tremendous avalanche. This final calamity sealed the Vlll from any major force of men. Travel into the area formerly occupied by Hellgate Keep is now limited to adventurers and other brave travellers. The Mistmaster has been questioned repeatedly by some of the most powerful wizards in the realms, including Elminster of Shadowdale and Kelben Aronson, about the current location of the Gatekeeper's crystal. Most sources claim that the pieces of the crystal have been scattered amongst the plains again, but no one is certain. Near Nesme, the source of the trolls' exodus is revealed. Fog and cloud giants have taken up residence in the moor, driving the trolls from the giants' new homeland. While it's unknown how many giants have taken up residence in the high moor, estimates range up to several hundred. A thick mist continually hangs in the air of the Evermoors now, even more persistent and thick than the mist before the giants' arrival. Many believe that these new mists are the work of the cloud giants, but none can be certain. Alastriel of Silverymoon sent a detachment of guards to investigate the eastern borders of the moor, and the guards returned with news that a gathering of around 20 fog giants, who were of good nature and quite friendly, had taken up residence in a formerly troll-infested area. Guards from neighbouring Nesme were not so fortunate, however, running into a clan of violent, boulder-hurling fog and cloud giants who nearly decimated their unit. In addition, a group of adventurers crawled into Nesme with terrible burns, reporting that they had run into a black dragon at a fog giant encampment. Overall, it appears that both good and evil giants now call the moor their home. History of the North Book 9, Return of the Beast, 1367. Sages, philosophers, historians and priests alike feel an ill boding in the chill air. They predict a slow change over the next decade, but within the lifetime of men born on the first day of this age. They believe that the beasts that once ruled the land plan to return to claim what's rightfully theirs, imprisoning and enslaving the crowns. Where elves once reigned, men now rule, but their hold, as true for all civilizations before, is tenuous at best. History of the North, Book 10, 1370, Year of the Tankard. Even before spring has graced the savage north, reports of Trents massing in the high forest have reached all of the northern cities. It seems that all of the creatures of the forest have mobilized to restore the high forest after the fall of Hellgate Keep. Something must still reside below the ruins of Hellgate Keep, however, for the company of the Jaded Heart never emerged from the depths below the city. The Treants have since blocked entrance into the ruins, sealing whatever evil still lurks within far below the sight of man. But there is other activity in the north as well. Luskan still flirts with war, tempting neighbouring cities and yet staying just below the wrath of Waterdeep. The barbarians still brew in the north, quick to take offence at innocent incursions into their sacred holdings. Rumours of the Gentarim agents scouring the fallen lands for powerful magics from long-lost Netheril continue to circulate. And adventurers still abound in the savage frontier.